Welcome to J is for Justice podcast. If live breaking news and following true crime is your thing, then please consider subscribing to my channel. And if you like what you see in my videos, please consider giving them a thumbs up. Hey guys, welcome back to J is for Justice. What's wrong? What happened? Are we not live? What happened? Why does stuff always happen to me? What are you guys freaking out about? Why did you think it ended? Hold on. The stream ended, but I'm back? That is so weird. No, I'm live, right? The stream ended, but I'm back? That is so weird. That is weird. You're live? It looked like it ended. It ended and we're live as AF. Hey, B. Tim. Whoa, that was weird. I was just checking on my phone. Midwest, thank you for being a member for a whole month. Good to see you. We're here. That's weird. Everybody was like, whoa. Oh, my goodness. Trippy. I hope you guys are having a good Saturday. I want to apologize. Sherry, thank you so much. Listen.
Sherry has supported the stream using J4J Live.
Thank you, Sherry. Thank you so much. $50. Holy shit, Sherry. That is so generous of you. Wow, Sherry just tipped me $50. Thank you so much. Wow. Y'all, that's really nice. Thank you, Sherry. Welcome in, moderators. Good to see you, Olip. I'm glad you're here. Jammers is here. Kels is here. Angie. The Olip. Look at you all tan and stuff. I'm really not that tan. I look like I have a receding hairline because my grays are coming in. And when my grays come in and the light hits them, it looks like I have a receding hairline, but I don't. FYI. Hey, Heather. Good to see you. Mesera. Good to see you. Thank you for being a member for 4 months. Wow. Thank you so much. So, you guys, it's just Wisdom J, not Gray, right? Thanks, Salty. But Drunk Turkey did an excellent job on this interview, and I want to walk through it with you guys. And I'm so glad that you guys are here. Now, what I want to know is if you already watched the interview. Put a 1 in chat if you've already watched this on the Drunk Turkey show. Hey, Pandy, good to see you. No contact post the LA fires. Good to see you. Thanks for coming in. Hey, Nana. Facts and Truth. You guys have watched it. I thought they did it. I thought it was excellent. Kels watched a little bit. Hey, Shell. This is just the other day. There's a lot of nuggets in this. Oh, a lot of you haven't seen it. Awesome. You went from dark brown to platinum blonde. Wow, that takes guts. The Drunk Turkey show. Okay, so a lot of you haven't seen it. Sin, good to see you. One-eyed Flobo. Okay, so let's watch it together. Again, this is the Drunk Turkey show. His name is Daniel. He did a great job in this interview. He let Steve talk, which is... I love it. It really was a good... Hey, John Gone Girl. But let's walk through it. I'm going to point out some of the things that I thought were obviously new that we didn't know and things that seem to be important. So I got it on 1.25 so that we can get through it a little bit faster this Saturday afternoon. Let's get started. Hey, Erwin. Hey, Jammers.
Yeah, good news
The
today.
gang's all here. The gang's all here. Welcome in, Brenda.
So it's a good day.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's it sounds good. It's
out here in Texas. It's getting warm, and so I can imagine it's I guess a little bit cooler up there up in northern Idaho. You mentioned some good news today. I'm not sure how much you can go into, but more or less, what kind of news would that be?
We got some word that there was some paperwork that came out. I believe there were subpoenas, but don't quote me on that. I don't know exactly what they were, but there's paperwork that came out that asked people to be prepared to go to court. So take that as a sign that Hitler's tight schedule is something he put together, and it looks like it's gonna happen.
Hey,
I'm kind of
Cheryl.
reading between the lines a little bit, but I can't say that that's a bad sign. So I'm glad that it's another thing that made this day a pretty good day.
Yes, sir. I've been more excited. It's wrong. I've been liking what I've seen out of Judge Hitler. Not saying anything bad against Judge John Judge. It's just there's a different
I like
attitude,
Hitler
a different
too.
confidence, a different way of controlling the court. Have you noticed the difference? And I know you were a little bit against the move to Ada County. Do you feel the same way now?
You can have both things, right? You can be disappointed that the community that was hurt the most isn't the one that's able to see the justice. And I don't want to live in a country or a world where only our biggest societies are the ones that are able to orchestrate justice. You don't want to be in a situation where you have to be in a big city for you to be able to have the facilities and the resources to actually have justice. I think that's a bad message, and I'm still against that. But it is what it is. Ottawa County, they didn't have the resources. They couldn't get it done. It was nothing against Hitler, but that courtroom was a fraction of the size of the one we're going to. Mm-hmm. It didn't even have an elevator. This one has an elevator of at least, I'm going to say 6 floors. I haven't been on all of them. I typically just go straight to Hitler's, which is on the 5th floor, and I get out there and go straight to his court. So insecurity, all the different things that they have, there's a lot that goes into a case that gets the attention of the nation. So I was disappointed that we had to move it, but I believed in the leadership of the state of Idaho that they would go out and find somebody who was built for this case, and that's exactly what happened. They went and found somebody who was understood the struggles that we were going through, and we got a leader that could go in there and clarify and understood the law, could figure it out on the fly, and you see that all the time. Even presents logical arguments that I've been hoping somebody would, which just speeds the whole process up. Otherwise, you send everyone home, then they build the arguments, and then they come back and they say something that could have been spoken right then and there. So I'm definitely happy with Hitler, and I think he's more than fair. And things are moving. I feel like we went 2 years without anything happening.
Finally, things are moving.
I'm glad to be in a situation where this is an everyday of my life. Hopefully we don't go past 3 years, and we get to the bottom of this.
Yeah, I agree 100%. One of the things that I've really thought that has made a big difference in this case is the transparency that's also been possessed through this case and now through Judge Hitler. And how do you feel about the transparency, the information that is now going through? This is a lot of information. We've had 911 calls, we've had text messages, we've had a lot of things that have come out recently that were sealed. As a family member of a victim, how do you see that information coming out? And how does it make you feel?
I'm not a fan of gag orders. When we first got one on us, we did a little research on them. We found out the origins of them that we found in the United States went back to the 1800s, and they were used to basically silence the legal representation of unions. So when they started hiring lawyers with their fees and started to be able to have a lawyer tell them, hey, these mines that we're going into aren't safe. The whole bird, canary in the gold mine, mm-hmm. that goes back to these guys. They would go down there, and when the bird died, they ran. That was their safety. So they hired lawyers, and then these lawyers started, TV wasn't a thing. They went to the local newspaper and started saying and describing the conditions. And one of the legals of the time said, you need to shut him up. You got to shut those lawyers up. So they made a gag order. So they're not really, I'm not a fan of them. I don't like them at all. I think the truth coming from the court, the facts as they are, you're still going to have jury members that decide what those ultimate facts are, but hiding information in the sake of thinking that you can control the narrative. I don't, maybe when you had 3 news channels back in the day, when I was a kid, you had ABC, CBS, and NBC, and that was it. But those days are gone. Everybody's you got these people that think he's innocent, and you got these people that think he's guilty, and there's every view in between. So you're not going to hear just one narrative. You're not going to hear 3 stations saying that he's guilty. And that was just one reason of a gag order, where they basically said that this individual couldn't get a fair trial. But like I said, the gag order goes back to suppressing a lot of truth. And
he's going to tell us.
I don't want to live in a country where we have to hide the truth as we know it, the facts that are found in an investigation. We have somebody who's been in jail for 3.5 years. You should have a lot of evidence, and society should agree that evidence is sound enough that we can keep these people off the streets. Otherwise, you release them on bail. So I think our case, a lot of people try to say he's innocent until proven guilty. That's true. That's true in the most generic way. But we do have a grand jury, and that grand jury did an indictment, and that indictment basically pulled him off the streets. So I remind people, I remind my children that we don't have like an innocent person in jail, that there is no evidence. We actually do have somebody in jail with a bunch of evidence. And if he doesn't have answers for that evidence, I believe the case is over.
Yeah, no, there's actually quite a bit of evidence against him that we know about. I'm sure there's even more we don't. I think a lot of people look at the probable cause affidavit and say, hey, well, this has a lot of the information. And at the time, it probably did, but not so much anymore. I mean, the PCA was developed in probably 9 days from the moment that they got his name to the moment that they put him in handcuffs. And so a lot more time has gone since then. And, well, let's kind of get back into it. Let's go to the beginning. A lot of people struggle with that night. Why that night? And a lot of folks have struggled with, if this was a guy that was trying to commit the perfect crime, he would have noticed the new vehicle. That was Kaylee's. Maybe he didn't know who it was. She had not been there for a while. A lot of people speculate that she'd moved out and there was nothing there anymore. Is that the case when it comes to what she was still living there or not?
She was spending way more time at our house. So depending on who this person was after, he may have chosen the date because that she was there. Because the previous 2 weeks she had been at our home and had been taking care of stuff. People that don't know the area.
Okay. This is the first nugget that I noticed. We're going to go back and we're going to listen to this in normal speed. Do you guys think that Kaylee sensed some kind of a threat? Like, why was she spending more time? He didn't say, yeah, she moved out, remember? Everyone was like, oh, she had already moved out. But then when we saw the pictures, all of her stuff was in her room. It didn't look like she had moved out. So if you listen here, he says she had been spending more time with us and being taken care of. Did you hear that? Listen again.
Spending way more time at our house. So depending on who this person was after, he may have chosen the date.
Froze. I shouldn't be froze. I'm here. Can you guys hear me? It's not buffering on my end. Did you hear that? It must be YouTube because it's not me. It seems fine for me. I guess if it freezes, just wait. Hey, Tato. Sorry about that. I don't know what the heck's going on.
Day because that she was there. Because the previous 2 weeks she had been at our home and had been taking care of stuff. People that had been at our home and had been taking care of stuff.
Oh, and had been taking care of stuff. She had been at our home and had been taking care of stuff.
People that don't know the area, that community, I think, gets around 90,000 when it's full in term between WSU and UI. But when they're out, it drops down to like 20,000 people. So what that means is if you're a local and you're one of these kids being a barista or working on tips, the money's gone. It dries up. So they all get out of town once school's out. So, she was up here, hustling, doing, she can go back to her barista job. I know other kids, my son, Jack, they come up here and as long as you don't burn your employee, you give them a call and you can pick up a shift at any drop of a hat. And we don't have the seasonal flows out like they do, so they could come up here and make good money. So I don't think she was there that much. And he had stocked that place out 23 times at least that we know of. We know he'd done more than that. There's some surveillance that shows that some of the days that he was there, he didn't have his phone on. the people got hung up, and even myself, over the stalking. The stalking in Idaho is defined as a certain profile. He was definitely stalking, surveilling, whatever definition you want. That he didn't have reasons to be in that location within 100 yards, and I can guarantee you they've checked his bank records and seen if he was actually shopping. Like some people are just naive and stupid. They want to be stupid. They want to believe myths and fairy tales and be lied to. I don't have any time for those type of people. So we nailed down all these type of things. When we talk with the prosecution, we're just like, let's make sure that we've checked bank records. Let's make sure that we can define everything that this individual is doing when he was making these trips. And when you're talking about 23 trips, can a person make a perfect backstory every single time they're driving out there? Sure, some days you can go to Winco and pick up a 6-pack and some potato chips or milk or whatever, but it takes true discipline to do it every single time. And I know mistakes were made, and people think he was smart, and it doesn't matter. The days of making a perfect crime, they're over. You can't do it. There's just too many sensories. I mean, every camera is a sensor. Every car on the road, every single year we get, there's more and more cars with cameras. You see all these morons that are keying Teslas. What kind of idiot doesn't realize Teslas have cameras on 24/7? That they don't even need the car to be turned on. Yeah. So when you see stuff like that, your days of making a crime and not being seen, they're over. And thank God for that, because maybe people can just get over it and treat each other good and stop trying to cut out corners and trying to it's very rare that you get some individual who thinks he's got visions of grandeur so much that they think that they can decide when people live and die. I mean, that's a psychopath. That's somebody who's just got a death wish, and he wants to go out and be famous off of what his actions are rather than who he is. So I think you had that place, stepped out, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's seen something that night that made him decide that he had to do it. He had to build up, and I think there was multiple times he went there and he thought it was going to be the night. And he got frustrated because there was a party or there were some people there, and he wasn't allowed to do it. So he made a rash decision. He rushed himself and he went and did it. And like I said, he's not as smart as he thinks he is. None of us are as smart as we think we are.
Hey, Granny.
We think we can get away with it, and a whole community is not going to be able to figure out that we're involved.
Yeah, 100%. You mentioned the 23 times that he was around that place. In the documents.
Okay, so we've got 23 times he's around the 1122 King Road. Now he's going to tell us that how close he gets to 1122 King Road.
It verifies or clarifies that on these occasions, these 23 times, that he was within 100 meters, and it was between the hours of 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. Not when majority of your shopping.
He was within 100 meters of that home. Now, I don't know how many meters to feet or whatever the conversion is, but 23 times within 100 meters. Pandy, you're good. And it was between the hours of 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. So the times are creepy too, right? Like, you're not just going to be in that area. There's no stores that close to their house or whatever.
He was within.
Hi, Michelle G. Hey, Evelyn. Hey, Moxie. If I missed you, hello. If you guys could hit the like button.
100 meters, and it was between the hours of 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. Not when majority of your shopping is done, and there's not a store.
325 feet.
You also mentioned that maybe perhaps he was out there with his phone off. The documents only bring up to November 17th. I don't know if you know or not, but I think that if Kaylee was maybe perhaps the subject of the target there, maybe there'd be some sort of correspondence there with the times that he was in the area with his phone off, and the nights that he went with his phone off was also the times that Kaylee may have been in town. If those days correspond together, then that might be something that really points in that direction. Back early on, you had mentioned that injuries didn't match.
Okay, before we get to the injuries don't match. Nadine, what do you mean? What's going on in what background? Background of what? What is it? Hey, Sugarfoot. So within 330 feet of the house. 23 times between the hours of 10 and 4. Okay, so now we're getting to where the injuries don't match. And this is hard to hear. I'm sure it's hard for him to talk about, but let's go.
A lot of people have speculated what you meant by that, including myself. I still don't know the answer. Would you mind explaining what you meant by that?
I'm careful with it because throughout this whole investigation, there was things that we found out on our own, and there was things that they shared with us, and that was one of the things that we kind of found out on our own. So I did share a little bit, and usually when I do share things, it's things that I didn't give my word that I wouldn't share it. It's hard to describe. I don't want to go too far around it, but like how I said, we talked to Mabbit, and she basically said that
Mabbit,
they were in the bed together. They had passed away, but she's seen markings and damages that made her.
Mabbit, remember, is the medical examiner. Okay. What was her first name? Catherine or Kathleen? Mabbit.
Mabbit, and she basically said that they were in the bed together. They had passed away, but she's seen markings and damages that made her suspect that.
So they both were in the bed? See, I'm confused now because I thought that they said she was that Catherine Mabutt. Catherine? Listen, I thought that Kaylee was trapped. Did he put her on the bed? Oh, that's nice, Lucia.
That there was more to what had happened to them in that bedroom. So, I mean,
Ooh.
I'll say he struck my daughter,
There was more. Okay, hold on. There was more that happened in that bedroom.
And damages that made her suspect that that there was more to what had happened to them in that bedroom. So, I mean, I'll say he struck my daughter. I'll give that out. He punched her, and so for all those people who think he's a great guy, now he punched my daughter right in the face.
This made me sick. Poor Kaylee. So she was fighting back? He punched her right in the face.
So yeah, he's got some shit coming to him. We're coming for him. That's one thing that was a little bit different. There's more to it, but I'm gonna have to sit down with make sure that I don't say something that.
So there's more about the scene in the upstairs bedroom that he is holding back on. Oh, it's so awful. It's so awful.
Is going to play into the case and tie anybody's hands.
Understood. Yeah, we definitely don't want to, I don't mean any disrespect either by the question, and I hope
maybe he did, Marlene.
I've never wanted to ask yourself or anybody anything about the injuries or the severity. My thoughts had always been that obviously there would have to be a first person that he'd attack, and we'd probably have more of a surprise, and then a second person that he might have to act a little bit more quickly. But it sounds like it could be even more than that. Which is it's the whole thing is sad, and I apologize, and I'm sorry for your loss. Of course. And so, you mentioned that law enforcement, they were open with you in the beginning, and then at a certain point they stopped. Was there ever a time when they may have told you that they believed that the person who committed this crime was outside of her circle, a stranger, so to speak?
Yeah, very early on they talked about they being the FBI. So we have an FBI satellite in the location right here in Coeur d'Alene. Mm-hmm. So we went down there, and they laid out a profile for us. Said we wouldn't be surprised if this individual picked this community on purpose, because I guess they knew by the crime scene that this was a planned out event. There wasn't. They would know how something would look like if it's, like a domestic violence type thing. It's going to look different than a crime where somebody sneaks in, gets to the people, kills them, and then gets out and doesn't leave a bunch of evidence, a bunch of blood trails out, and all that type of stuff. So early on, they said that they think that this individual picked this community. They wouldn't be surprised if he was on hugging the border of Washington. He was on the Washington side. There was I think a Lewis and Clark murder case that was 5 victims. And
Remember?
They never figured out who it was.
Remember, guys, we went over the Lewis Clark case. Remember the 5 victims? Some of them were UA students. There's 5 unsolved murders in that vicinity. Yeah, I'll look for my video while we're listening to this, but it's super weird.
Was. So if this person was studying law, they may have known that this community had already had a serial killer come into their area, and then they got away with it. So that, and if this person wanted to go to a college and go get, education, then, he had 2 colleges to pick from. And he was also going to an area that didn't have a history of always catching their serial killer. So I think they had identified that 100%. And they went down some scenarios of like what this person would probably behave like, what they would do, what their profile was. And the thing is, between the FBI, the state police, and my own investigation and investigator, and just having a presence online with all these kids that could reach out to us and talk to us, we found out a lot of information pretty early on. And I think maybe law enforcement was scared to have somebody who was that in tune with what was going on. We knew about the chief before it ever came forward. We knew about the white car day one. They were like, they're looking for a white car. We didn't come out and tell anyone that because we didn't want people flooding us with fake clues.
Wow. So they knew they were looking for a white car from day one, guys. Did you hear that? And they kept that to themselves.
Came forward. We knew about the white car day one. They were like,
day one.
They're looking for a white car. We didn't come out and tell anyone that because we didn't want people flooding us with fake clues. That was one reason why we never even gave out some of the details on Kaylee, because we'd have people that say, oh, I know who did it, and this is how it went down. So then we'd say, well, what happened to Kaylee? And they could never, obviously they couldn't tell us what those details were. So we were doing the same thing that officers do. You keep some exclusive information back so you can vet people that are trying to be a snitch or an informant, or they're trying to leverage, like, hey, I'm going to tell you this stuff about what this other guy did so I can get out of jail, or I can things like that. So we went through some of that, and but I think when we were accurate and we had that information, there was definitely, I know individuals looked us up and said, how are you guys coming to this info? How are you guys getting this stuff? And maybe it was just luck, maybe it was determination, and I feel like there was times I worked on this case 10 hours a day. So
I'm so sorry that happened, Pandy. I will look it up though.
You guys getting this stuff, and
the coming back in the morning, yes, that always bothered me as well, Kim.
Maybe it was just luck, maybe it was determination, and I feel like there was times I worked on this case 10 hours a day, 7 days a week. So we figured some stuff out, and that can definitely intimidate people, especially for a person who's, I told them right off the beginning, you're not going to gag me. You're not going to silence me. I'm not going to play a part in helping the person who killed my daughter.
Bam.
I'm going to do everything in my path to make sure that I play a role, that this guy is killed and held 100% accountable to the fullest extent of the law, directly because he chose my family.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing.
Yeah, 100%.
Man. Hey, Minoda from England. He's like, I want this guy killed and held responsible. I can't blame him. I have a feeling that these are going to be some very, very brutal details that we hear in this trial, y'all. Trial starts August 11th, by the way, in case you guys were wondering.
As a father myself, if I was really hoping, and I was in your situation, I'd probably be in the same boat, my man. Doing everything I possibly can, having as much attention as I possibly can get before it turns into like some sort of cold case. Because I can fairly positively say that may have been a fear at one point, that they weren't going to catch this guy.
Yeah. I mean, we all hear about the truck driver or, the rambling guy who just comes through your town. You know how hard it is.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody who's doesn't have any connections to your community. And this individual didn't have any community, he didn't have a history. He was just moved out there. So those are the hardest cases. I've become very obsessed with working with legislators over this, because I'm like, something longstanding that we can do to help these children, this happened to them, is we can pass some laws that can help make it harder for somebody to come into our community and do something like this again. And one that's always been in the back of my mind, I've never worked on it, was just registering like truckers. If you're going to be an interstate trucker, you probably should have your fingerprints or something done into a system where, just because there's just so much, it's impossible to ask a local police officer to investigate some guy who comes into your community for a couple hours and you're never going to see.
That's so true. And if you think about like kidnappings or trafficking situations with truck drivers, the ones that are interstate, right? What do you guys think of that? I can't believe BK punched Kaylee in the face. Hard enough to see it, too. Who's the trucker? I think he's just saying, like, in that the Lewis Clark, it could have been, someone from out of town. And it would be, it's extremely hard to catch them, right? Because if they come and they commit a murder and then they go back where they're from and they never come back, it might be hard to find them, I think, is what he's getting at anyways. He's saying like have some kind of database or something.
You do.
Yeah, 100%. The defense has brought up that they have a full of alternate suspects, and I know they have some blood on a handrail, and I know they have some other persons that they might look at. Maybe perhaps an incident that may or may not have occurred at Signakai. I don't know if it did or didn't. Have you heard anything about that situation, or is that just all rumor?
It's all rumored BS. I mean, he was with his sister, man. These kids are so good. I mean, he was being his little date for his sister. I mean, wow. You see so many brothers and sisters fight and they can't stand each other. And these guys were, she was inviting him over for like a dance to be around her brother. So it just goes to show how close these kids were. But yeah, I haven't heard no real, any truth to any of that.
Another person that I think that the defense might look at it is Jack. And a lot of reason might be just because he was with the girls that night at the corner club. He was the person that was getting phone calls. A lot of people still suspect that those phone calls may have been somebody else, without going into any details, because that's their
the
business.
Phone calls to Jack.
Did you hear any voicemails, or was it just text messages? Was there like proof of life at the time when those voicemails or calls were left?
The phone stuff was investigated by Christy and Olivia, so I wasn't around when they actually got into those things. I seen some of the screen captures, but I'm trying to help people understand how we know for a fact that Jack's not involved. There is the whole cast went into that neighborhood, and people are going to understand that cast detail is, though we didn't get some of the timing records, there's still a lot of information there that they did get. And Jack is one of the people where they did get the timing records, which lets you go within feet. Mm-hmm. So they knew when Jack's phone was moving when he was in his bed, sleeping and moving around.
Wow. So the cast report proved that Jack was in bed. Wow.
Whether that was under his pillow or it was on his blankets or whatever moving around. So they have a absolute certainty where Jack was that night. And there's surveillance that was going on around there that lets them know. I mean, of course, he could sneak up in the attic and go through the crawl space. You could always, you could do these YouTube crazy scenarios where he got out of the house without triggering any of the surveillance that they had. But realistically, they know exactly where he was. Now, is he going to be an alternative suspect? Well, hopefully they don't put him through that. But if he does, he'll be coming into that courtroom with us right by his side. And he'll probably be staying over at our house at our Airbnb. So,
how's he doing?
Yeah, it's a waste of time, but she can only have certain kinds of suspects. The suspects have to play a part. They have to have some kind of evidence of being in that house. And a house with 6 different girls, there's going to be a lot of suspects. That qualifies a lot of people that could justifiably be in that home. So that's what she's going to do. But I go back to my Idaho community and some of the things that I've already heard grand jury members talk about and hear and speak, whether it was Blum or some of the other people that recorded some of the things. They said, these guys are stupid. These women aren't stupid. They know a suspect when they see one.
Okay, so what did he just say? Howard Bloom. It's Bloom. I say Blum too, Steve G. But Howard Bloom spoke with some of the grand jurors. And then we had people out there going, Howard Bloom is telling lies. Like, ain't no author, reporter from all those years gonna tell lies. So Howard Bloom spoke with the dang grand jurors, some of them. Thank you, Jammers, for sharing that link. You guys, there's links being shared. You're not going to want to miss those.
Grand jury members talk about and hear and speak, whether it was Blum or some of the other people that recorded some of the things. They said, these guys aren't stupid. These women aren't stupid. They know a suspect when they see one. I remember one of the greatest questions that one of them asked was, I think they said they asked the judge to verify if he ever had a fishing or a hunting license since he bought the K-bar, since it was delivered to his house. And he did. But that just goes to show that how intelligent these guys are. They're thinking it through. Like,
that's a good question. That's a really good question.
What reason would a guy have if he's not in the military? These guys out here are outdoorsmen. They know why you would have one of those. The K-bar's a military weapon to keep you, to fight other men. Really, that's what it's for. So you could be a moron and use it for filleting fish, but they wanted to rule that out. And maybe you're using it for hunting. You don't really know too much about hunting and the type of knives that most hunters use. But these guys are on top of it. And I think if he thinks he picked the right community, a bunch of dumb hillbillies, he's really in for a rude awakening.
Oh yeah, 100%. How is Jack doing? Is Murphy? Is he with Murphy? Is Murphy with Jack?
Yeah, they go camping. They do a lot of outdoor stuff.
Oh, Murphy.
What he said to us, we're hoping to do some fishing trips out here. We go into Montana. There's some lakes out that are pretty remote with some huge big old rainbow trout. So,
Nice.
yeah, we'll plan something. We'll do something with him this summer. And every year he's out there doing something in the mountains out on these. We call them logging roads. They're just dirt roads that take you out in the middle of nowhere, and you can get away from it.
Murphy.
I know he's going to be very stressed out. He's a very quiet kid. I mean, if you could look at somebody who would be like the least temperament to ever pull a crime like this off, it would be Jack. I mean,
Poor
Jack
kid.
and Kaylee, they've been dating for 8 years, I think. And she said he had never even raised his voice to her. He had never, ever insulted her in any fashion. They'd broken up for a while and she went out with another guy and he was so rude to her. And she was like, basically being around this guy in an hour, he had insulted me more than Jack had in 8 years. So she was like, I might not ever find another Jack again. I mean, that was her exact.
Man, that's really sad. I may never find another Jack again.
Words to her mom. So,
hey, Adrian.
I have no worries that they'll do that. I don't think it's fair, and I don't think it'll go anywhere.
Yeah, well, let him know that he'll be in my thoughts and prayers as long as with you and your family as well. Now, Bryan Kohberger gets arrested. How did you find out about his arrest? When did you find out about his arrest?
They called Shannon Gray, our lawyer, right away, as soon as before us, and they probably gave him like a rundown of the situation and how much they could say, and some paperwork that came along with it in an email. And so then he called us and he shared with us and said, "Hey, they've arrested a guy. Here's his name. Here's his background.
Wow.
There's a message that I sent you guys with some PDFs, some I think it was the affidavit and a couple other little side notes on there. I mean, it might have been some of the stuff from Pennsylvania. I don't remember exactly, but that's how we heard. It went straight to Shannon, then Shannon to us, and then we heard from Karen, and we started kind of just. We were super excited just because the next day we had a celebration of life, and we basically prayed that this person would be caught and we wouldn't have to go through that celebration of life thinking that this creep would be trying to
be there.
Be there among us and try to blend in and get some kind of satisfaction by watching us all suffering.
Yeah. I didn't know it was that much earlier before the celebration of life. I'm assuming they.
Well, we learned that Bryan Kohberger punched his daughter in the face, Rich Buddy. We found that, and I'm pretty sure they know because of the injuries to their daughter's body. Stop.
The first thing that you're doing is researching this guy. And, there's something called the Andrew Garrett discovery. Are you familiar with it?
I sure am. Yeah.
And it sure does seem like you guys were on the same page as far as the possibility of a social media account potentially belonging to Bryan Kohberger following some of the victims of your daughter and Maddie and Xana. Do you still feel that way, that that's the right profile and that there was some sort of following, at least on the internet, of some sort?
Yeah, it was kind of confusing at the very beginning, and I'm sure it was confusing for the investigators because I went in there one day with
Rich, there's a lot more evidence other than DNA. You don't have to have DNA to have a conviction. Okay? That's so weird to even say. Like, it's almost like you want him to get away with murder. It's fucking weird to me. That's so weird to me.
my family, and we were like, what happened to the LinkedIn? Why were you guys into her account? Why did you remove it?
This is interesting. Remember when Kaylee's LinkedIn disappeared? Listen to this.
And they looked at us like we were from another planet. Eyes bulged, and we could tell they were being completely honest. They were like, we have no idea what you're talking about. Well, we later on figured out and investigated and found out that it was the FBI. So there was 2 parallel investigations going on at the same time.
Hear that? So Kaylee's LinkedIn disappeared. And then they asked the local PD, like, what happened with that? They were clueless. Come to find out, the FBI was doing their own investigation. They were up in the LinkedIn. Thank you, Kaylee. Thank you for being here. It's good to see you.
So I think, and I've been told that the FBI wanted clear lines. Like, you guys are going to be working on this stream of information. We're going to be working on this stream of information. And stalking was one of them. When I had to sit down meetings with those FBI agents, they talked about how it was a 20-year term that they could possibly get if, because I was worried that I thought at one particular time, maybe I could have the charges dropped on Kaylee and picked up at the federal level. And then there would be a fail-safe in case something happened at the state level, if any mistakes were made, if anything got thrown out.
I thought this was
we were
interesting.
just trying to be that careful. And they basically let me.
Remember, we all wondered why this wasn't federal. Well, not all of us, but some of us questioned, how come this wasn't federal? Because he went over state lines to commit the crime. This kind of explains why. Federal cases are super expensive. They said don't count on the death penalty in a federal case. It would more likely be life without parole. Here, listen to what he says. Well, he wanted him to be charged federally instead of through the state.
That they had an investigation that they could still pick up. Even if something got messed up, this person was not going to walk free if somebody came out and, heaven forbid, got caught lying, or the Brady or whatever the different things that can throw evidence out. There was still another investigation that they felt very confident in. That I remember one of the agents saying, "We're the FBI. Do you think that a mass murder of 4 would be released on a technicality?" And I was like, I don't know.
I mean, yeah.
And they're like, no. We've sealed. We've looked. We have evidence. This individual will never be free again. 100%. We have the right guy. There's no doubt in our minds. And we can have him at the state level. We can have him at the federal level. So it built my confidence into sticking with the state level and not. It would have been more expensive. And I literally was at the point where
Thanks,
I was like,
Otto.
if it means that we don't ever, Kaylee doesn't ever go to court for her, thing, I would have been fine with that, just to have the backup, just to have the know that if something went wrong. But they were like, no need. This is, I've had individuals that do nothing but capital cases, 100%. That's all they do every single day of their lives, say that this is the strongest case that they've ever worked upon. They've never seen a case with this much evidence.
You hear that, Kohbergers? They've never seen a case with this much evidence. So if you think that the little tiny speck of trace DNA on the snap is all they have, I think you're really, really mistaken. No, I don't think he'll take the stand.
It sure does seem like it. I mean, at this point, it sounds like they have pieced together his entire kill kit. From the mask to the knife,
Minota,
to the
yay!
the sharpener, the jumpsuit.
Did you hear what he said?
I wouldn't be surprised if they found to the knife, to the sheath.
The mask, to the knife, to the sheath, to the jumpsuit. And then you're going to hear Steve talk about something really interesting right now. The fact that Dickies only supplied certain items to their area. Okay? They're in the boondocks. There isn't a lot of options. Noel, they're talking about the murder case. Getting it dropped from the state level to a federal level. That's all. Hey, true crime.
Sharpener, the jumpsuit.
The sharpener.
I wouldn't be surprised if they found Vans shoes somewhere and other types of shoes and booties.
Size 13, right?
Yes, size 13.
To save his own life, he should have pled, but he wasn't offered a plea. Bryan Kohberger hasn't been offered a plea.
You know, the judge mentioned something about a gift card as well. I thought that was interesting as far as the purchase goes. To me, if he did use a gift card, that just shows that he was trying to hide the purchase. And not very well, because he still got it delivered to his house by name. When you mentioned the FBI, I thought this case could have easily gone to the FBI, given the fact that a lot of that kill kit was purchased in Pennsylvania. He traveled to Washington. If he was doing some following online, one could perceive that some of that following may have been done in Washington. He crossed state lines to go and park at their residence, and for at least on one night for over an hour, between 10 to 4 a.m. You know, those are all pretty big signs that this could have gone federal. But you know, they went through the state, and from based on what you tell me, it sounds like they got a strong case against him.
I think he didn't plead guilty because he's trying to get away with it. Like, I think his whole thing is, what if you were going to kill someone? How would you get away with it? I think that is the end all be all. Committing the perfect crime. He wasn't offered a plea deal, though. He wasn't offered one. He has to be offered one to take him one. To take one. They want to kill him. The state wants to put him to death. They're not offering him any plea deal to admit he did it. You know why? Because they don't need to. You know why? Because they have enough evidence to convict him on the death penalty. That's why. They're not going to go for the death penalty if they don't have enough evidence to convict him on it. They're just not. They're not. And no one's going to offer him a plea. They want to kill him. Period.
Yeah. One of the reasons that you can make it a federal case is if you conspired. If you're sitting there and you're doing things online, I think I'd have to go back and review the actual provision, but it talks about if you're committing a crime and you're using a computer to do the crime. And that K-bar being ordered there means that he's got premeditation and he started planning it back there and then went and committed it in another state and then, or relocated to another state from the origins of the crime and then jumped over to Idaho. So I definitely think it could have qualified for a federal case. And I think they would have, I think there was really a close battle and there was some back and forth on who was going to take this case over. But there was so much evidence that they were like, let's just let them, it is an Idaho thing. Let them have it. And I know.
So there's enough evidence where the feds didn't feel like they needed to take it. Why are they saying Kaylee had multiple weapons and multiple suspects? Because the defense can say whatever they want to say. It doesn't have to be true. You can't believe everything that the defense says, right? You can't. They can make shit up. They can say whatever they want. They can say whatever they want. They have to prove what they say. So unless they can prove there's multiple people that could have been the perpetrator, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Who's the other suspects? Is it Jack? Because we just heard the cast team has Jack in bed at home. So, I mean, they can say whatever they want, but they have to prove what they say. And everything that they've said, they haven't proved. They've just said it. You know, they put bullshit out there. And Judge was kind of letting them get away with that. This other judge is not letting them get away with what Judge let him get away with, in my opinion.
One thing that they told me was don't expect the death penalty if it goes federal.
Oh, got you. Yeah, that makes a big difference there.
Yeah, and I 100%
there you go.
wanted the death penalty.
100% want the death penalty.
That was one of the biggest reasons why we kept it where it was.
There you go. That makes the biggest difference there for me as well. You know, kind of going back to that night, there's video of a vehicle that's traveling around. There's also a video from another place, Linda Lane, that captures also some traveling around. Early on, there was a lot of speculation. Some people still point at this, that they can hear things throughout earlier portions of the night.
Okay, I'm torn on this one. Who put out the Linda Lane footage first? Does anybody know? Because Steve Goncalves is about to tell us that Linda Lane footage that was put out was altered. It was altered. Hey, Toy Airy.
I'm not sure if you have or not, but if you heard any of the audio that may be closer to the victims' homes, do you hear any of those such things? Do you think there may be some sort of play with the audio on some of those footages?
I know the backstory where that Linda Lane came from, and it was a money grab.
There you go. It was a money grab. So which YouTuber put it out first? It wasn't. It wasn't leaked. Who got it on YouTube and put it out first? Who put out the Linda Lane footage? Gray Hughes? Was it Gray Hughes? Welcome back, Angie. Someone bought it. Who was it? Well, listen to this.
Footages.
I know the backstory where that Linda Lane came from, and it was a money grab. It was literally, I know the exact person that went and purchased this thing, and yeah. So
he doesn't say who it is, though. He said, "I know the person who purchased it." Was it Gray Hughes? The Linda Lane footage was not leaked. Someone bought it and put it out.
they tried to get me to release it or discuss it or bring it up in one of the interviews that I was doing, and get me to echo some of the things that were on it. So I had some people look at it themselves, and they were like, it's either been the audio has been manipulated, or it's so poor quality that they didn't have any confidence in it. And some of the things that are the times don't match up to the times that I know my daughter was moving and doing and sending taxes and all these different things. So
he's saying the time from the Linda Lane footage does not match up. Oh, of course it was TikTok. Brat Norton. I have never heard anything good about that girl. Not one thing. No, they're saying Brat Norton put it out first. But he's saying that the times and the noises in the video don't match up with Kaylee's phone movements and what she was doing.
And plus we had the 1112, I think that is the other surveillance that basically we could hear a lot clearer during the exact same times. So anyone who thinks that they're breaking the case over these cameras and whatever they're hearing, it's kind of naive. It's naive to think that you heard something and everybody's going to throw this investigation off and not overlook something that you found is so amazing.
Right.
This true crime stuff is it's an eye opener. It sucks to her daughter's murder be like some form of somebody's like entertainment. And they like to go out there and stir up their followers and make narratives that are more like for novels than real life. So it's.
He didn't say there was video from 1122. Yeah, wait, hold on. We had the 1112. Wait, hold on. Let's listen to that part again.
And plus we had the 1112. I think that is the other surveillance that basically we could hear a lot clearer during the exact same times. So anyone who thinks that they're breaking the case over these cameras and whatever they're hearing.
Well, that was Bullhorn Betty that Jay's gotta eat. Listen, Bullhorn Betty put that out. Bullhorn Betty put out that audio from 1112. Bullhorn Betty, he let Bullhorn Betty in his house. Hey, Sherry.
Sending taxes and all these different things. So, and plus we had the 1112. I think that is the other surveillance that basically we could hear a lot clearer during the exact same times. So anyone who thinks that they're breaking a case over these cameras and whatever they're hearing.
Breaking the case over these cameras and whatever they're hearing. You hear that, Betty? Hear that, Bullhorn Betty?
Hearing.
She put it out and then she took it back down.
It's kind of naive. It's naive to think that you heard something and everybody's going to throw this investigation off and not overlook something that you found is so amazing. This true crime stuff is it's an eye opener. It sucks to have your daughter's murder be like some form of somebody's like entertainment.
God, that has to be weird. It is weird. Meanwhile, he's sitting on this panel with like this weird background with all these crime scene photos. And I don't know if y'all noticed the crime scene photo right below Steve. The guy with the mask and the knife at the girl's throat. Yikes. I hope he didn't see that. That would be kind of triggering. But yeah, I mean, it's got to be eye-opening to see your daughter's murder as entertainment.
It sucks to have your daughter's murder be like some form of somebody's like entertainment, you know, and they like to go out there and stir up their followers and make you know, narratives that are more like for novels than real life, you know. So it's terrible. And I don't know what I'm going to do if I ever cross one of these people.
Yeah.
I've thought to myself, do I just go to jail? And you know, do I just
Oh man, some of those people might be at the trial, Steve. Some of these people might be at the trial.
It's terrible. And I don't know what I'm going to do if I ever cross one of these people.
Yeah.
I've thought to myself, do I just go to jail? And you know, do I just
worth it.
But it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard, you know.
Yeah.
And it's not most of them. There's only a few that are like that. I mean, most people are trying to be honest and like you are and you have been. And and I don't even expect you to always be right. You know, we haven't been right every time either. So I just expect people to be honorable and don't purposely spin a narrative that you know in the back of your mind is false. And you just hope that your users never, you know, cross the same information that you found. You know, you go suppress certain things to keep your narrative alive longer. I'm almost positive that there's people doing that because I've seen other people make comments that said, hey, this happened at this time. This doesn't follow your scenario. And then they just strike that, you know, that thing's been deleted. You know, they delete it after a certain amount of time. So it tells me that this person isn't after the truth. They're just after
clicks and
rallying up their followers.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, no, I've seen that. I've seen that in a few different cases where, in different ones too, where this mob just kind of gets out of control, which is one of the things that I really try to go up against here on this channel is to put out there what's correct and accurate versus, and to combat those that are trying to manipulate what is put out there. There's been literally a situation where there was a scenario with the DNA in this case where they were talking about how it doubled up. And the way it was explained to me was as if you had like an audio where you wanted to play an MP4 and an MP3, you had to change it. And so now you have the MP3 and the MP4, but they're both the same thing. And yet on these Kohberger channels, they just hear that it doubled it, that they hit the pause button. They don't go into the explanation of why it is. And they leave a huge piece of context out. And that's what we tried to add on here is that context to make sure that everybody understands exactly what's going on. You know, you brought up something interesting. You brought up the 1112 King Road video. Without going into too many details, because I don't want to violate any gag order, but when you have the opportunity to maybe view it or not, is there a distinct time difference between the DoorDasher? Do you see a DoorDash vehicle? And is that vehicle different than the white vehicle that is suspected to be Bryan Kohberger's?
What I seen, yes, it's a different vehicle. The times line up with what the courts have specified. I often wonder if that vehicle crosses paths with the white Elantra.
That's what I thought.
It looks to line up to where they possibly do. And
so that's what I thought. The DoorDasher crossed paths with Kohberger in some way. They may have an eyewitness.
It'd just make the case even that much stronger. Especially now, the age of that car, I don't know if it would have a camera, and I don't know what. I've never done Uber Eats or any of those type of things, so I don't know what their rules are if you have to have some way of tracking your vehicle. But yeah, there things. There's certain cameras that are a lot better at detailing what's going on, and they've triangulated all of the cameras together, so they're not relying on just one. And the timing that they do between when it hits one and then goes to another, then they can tell you the speed that it was doing. So that white car was all over that crime scene, and you know, the person had their phone off, which we knew very early on with those FBI saying that we're almost looking more for someone who turned their phone off during these times. That was more of a red flag to them than having a phone on. Now, most of the phones, now, of course, they're going to go through all those people in that area and look for out of area numbers. So if those girls, their numbers weren't as interesting as
I agree, Margaret.
somebody that was from, let's say, Montana went through there, that had not shown up ever on all the previous dumps that they weren't just dumping that day. They were putting together all those things. So they were looking for outsiders, and they were also looking for somebody who had turned their phone off. Because what do college students never do? They never turn their phones off. Right. They never turn them off. I mean, they put them on a charger next to their bed. Why would your phone go off? And I used to have the exact term on this, but some of the Garretts, some of the people that I've spoken with, Shadow Dragon, there's a hard close. Don't quote me if that's the exact word it is. I'd have to go look at my records, but there's a way that they can identify when a phone's been turned off and how it's been turned off. And they can even tell you if the battery life, what it is. So when this moron turned off his phone, hard turned it off with 90 some plus battery life, and he's sitting in his car driving around. People, you're fools if you think that this is just all coincidence. Here's another coincidence that they're going to be checking on. So how many stargazing apps do you got on that phone? How many you got on there, Bo? Because I don't think you got any. And believe it or not, those are actually pretty popular apps. I was shocked. So the amount of detail that.
So he was stargazing, but where's your app? Noel, thank you for your $19.99 super chat. That's very generous of you. Thank you. Jay, in my opinion, I think Kaylee's car videotaped the whole weekend. What do you mean? How does that work? I'm seeing you, Pandy.
Investigators have done. It's impressive. I mean, these are great, hardworking men. They shouldn't be attacked. They shouldn't be pulled into these conspiracies and all this stuff. I mean, a little bit goes with the job, but this case, I feel like it's taken it to another level. And I just don't think it's fair. I think it's foolish to think that you got Moscow in on some kind of conspiracy, and then you got Washington State, and then you got Idaho State, and then you got the federal. They're all working together.
And the college.
I mean, at what point is it just get so ridiculous? But maybe this is what Hollywood's done, is just poison people's minds to where they every movie you watch has a flip and something happens at the very end, and that's what people are expecting in this case, because it's just so obvious. There's so much evidence pointing to one guy. They think that there has to be this curvature, some special ending, but this is real life, people, and they got the right person. And there was a time where I was trying to be very open about who it was, but they laid it out in a way that still hasn't came out. There's stuff that is going to literally blow people's mind. Like this jury is going to be like the first one, an hour and a half, and go get him, indict him. He's done. Oh, yeah. So people who think that these guys are going to be like sitting for hours stressing out on what argument Ann had. And
the grand jury only took an hour and a half to indict.
Is so desperate right now. It's a joke. She's so desperate that she's using the work that me and my family put together to get all those clues. We did those interviews so all these people would call, and if you see something, say something, and that led to a massive amount of tips. And she's going through all those. She's going through all that stuff, trying to find out somebody that can fit the profile of somebody she can say is an alternative suspect. But thank God Idaho has rules. So otherwise we'd probably be 4 weeks.
Yeah, they have rules, so she can't just throw spaghetti at the wall and see if it sticks.
Her just rambling off just nonsense and just trying to overwhelm the jury with just waste of time. And I still suspect that, but we won't be playing a part of that. And we're a different kind of family. She can say something in court, and then I'll get out of that courtroom and I'll rebut it. Mm-hmm. So I'm not here to help her have an easier case. Once that jury's secured in that room, there's nothing I can say on the camera that could ever reach to them. At that point, I'm letting it all out. Everything's coming out.
Oh, and, shit.
It'll be interesting. Because there's no holds bars at that point. We can once that jury's been selected, picked, and put into a chamber where they're not going to be watching the media, then they're so concerned. They're just making up stories like we wore. I never wore anything. None of the G's ever wore any of that. That's why we went back and said, go find it, find some proof. And of course they backed off of that because they went and checked the cameras. There was no. Yeah. But when I leave that courtroom, I'll put on anything I want, and my family will put on anything they want, and they're not going to control that. So, like I said, we're going to be a family that makes this individual look back and think, if there was one big mistake I made was going after a G, because those guys didn't stop. They just kept coming. They kept coming. And
I love their strength too. He says after the jury's picked, he's letting it all out. Lynn Love Light, BK's attorneys don't have a choice. Everybody in the United States is entitled to a fair defense. They're just doing their jobs. They're just doing their jobs. And that's all she's doing. And she's trying to avoid appeals, in my opinion.
How much easier would have my life been if I didn't have to turn on the TV and only see that guy, pointing out what I did?
100%. 100%. As an IT guy, apparently he puts his phone in a VPN when he turns it on at 4:48. Mm-hmm. What does that tell you? What is a VPN, for those that don't know, and what is somebody trying to accomplish with that? VPN
protects some of your identifiers. And normally on a PC, it's just mainly your IP. They're not nearly what people think they are. So what you could do is, so you're really tough. It's really hard to do this with a cell phone, because a cell phone, here's the problem with the cell phone is the towers won't communicate with you until you prove that you have a contract to use their services. So what that means is when your phone comes up, goes through a boot order, and it goes out and says, hey, this is my unique identifiers. I'm this person. I'm on AT&T, I'm on Sprint, whatever it is. I got a valid contract, and this, it's a certificate on that device, says, I want to use your tower, and it works. And then you put on a VPN, but that's already told the tower that you're there. Whereas a computer, you can have a VPN start before your internet starts. And then you can go out your internet and totally remain hidden. And so you look like you look like your ISP's number at that point. And you don't look like the house address. You're being able to hide your house address and look like the internet provider's address. But you can't do that on a cell phone. So this guy wasn't that smart. I mean, especially when it comes to IT. If he thought he could come out here and teach us, which we're all like ex-Californians, and people worked at like San Francisco and San Diego. I work with some brilliant individuals, MIT, all over. He was a moron. What he could have did, which we were trying to rule out, is if he had another phone and he tethered this one. So if he would have shared his Wi-Fi here and put VPN on there and then took this phone and then tethered it to that phone, he would have made it very, very difficult for them to track down. And then on this phone that doesn't have a cellular provider, doesn't have any contracts,
yes,
took pictures,
Bob, it is.
Did all this stuff on that. We had to rule that out.
Yeah,
and that was a scary moment to think that we could have had somebody that was truly a cloud forensic smart individual. This guy was just a stupid kid that. Thought he could have his moment out here with what I think you were talking about, like these rural police officers.
Yeah.
Yeah, like these guys don't know what's coming. I'm this new East Coast kid that understands all this stuff, and I'm gonna
remember his application to was it Pullman Police? He had an application, and he said he wanted to help rural police departments in their, like, body-worn camera and their digital stuff, whatever it was.
Yeah. I'm going to show them how to use all this stuff. Yeah. The computer stuff is going to do him in just as much as that DNA is.
Yeah, I agree. Early on, you had mentioned once that his phone may have touched the Wi-Fi. Is that accurate, or was that something that maybe... what did you mean by that? Because I haven't seen that in any document, and I'm curious about that.
Well, I was reading a certain document where it was talking about, I believe it was IEME ID, and those are associated with MAC tables. And I do know some stuff that's not public, and they were trying to get a hold of some of the records on the router. I may have just misread what I said, because it would have came out by now. The same people who make these lies up, and I'm like, well, where's your warrants? If some other person's involved, where are these warrants at? There's some guy out there that they hear on that Linda Lane. Probably shouldn't say his name just because he's probably sitting in jail, wondering why people are even talking about him. I think Farley or some shit.
Yeah.
Oh, remember that guy?
Yeah. So that guy, come on, give me a break, guys. Give me a break.
Yeah,
it doesn't match up. It's a waste of time.
It sure is. It sure is.
Thank you for becoming a member, T. Marie.
Overall, I think I strongly suspect they got the right guy. I mean, at this point, their only argument is that the DNA is or the sheath was planted. I don't even think they're arguing the DNA isn't his. You know, in this one of these recent documents, they reference how much DNA was found, and when I Google searched it, it's a large amount of DNA that was found on that knife on the knife sheet. I think it's going to do him in. I don't think he has very many arguments left. You know, I know right now he's throwing out autism and a bunch of other things. Some folks are thinking maybe he's trying to come up with something to push a plea deal. Have you heard of any type of plea deal? And do you think they would ask you first if they were going to go down that road?
By law, they have to. Idaho law, not federal law. You know, we're building. Old Thompson, he was like a Santa Claus. I think Thompson's skin's gotten tougher, and I think he's gotten a little bit more fighter spirit. And I think seeing us battle with the, you know, going through all the things that we've gone out with, there's stuff that people don't know. People like vandalizing, people showing up at our house, people posting pictures of our address, all this stuff. And I think he thought, you know, if they're going to go through this, then I'm gonna do the will of the,
Thank you, Noel.
the victims. And but I don't know if his heart was always in it. You know, 100%. It's hard. Nobody really wants to murder, you know, and go through a murder case and have to end somebody else's life. None of us want to do this, and we were forced to do this. We were forced into this behavior. We didn't want nothing to do with this loser. I mean, this guy was literally 27 years old, living with his parents. He's a complete loser. It's absolutely frustrating that my daughter got murdered by a complete loser. She's graduating a year early, on the dean's list. Nobody else was graduating a year early in that around her. She was a rock star, and this loser ends up sneaking in and killing her. So the least he can do is
horrible, isn't it? Thank you, Noel, again. You're very generous. Thank you for hitting the like button. It's just a little gentle reminder to everybody.
Pay the ultimate price. And you know, I think I've said this before in the past. Maybe the reason we have these school shooters and maybe we have these mass killings is because we never force people, especially youth, that see somebody like Bryan and there's all these fan clubs and stuff and think, well, I'm that loser too. And the idea of me being on TV and the world talking about me, and I'm getting these suits and I'm getting vegan meals and I'm up on there and girls are sending me letters and people are putting money on my books. All of a sudden I'm somebody. Mm-hmm. And there's these confused kids that think being a killer somebody's better than being a nobody that I am doing nothing. And that's sad and that's terrible.
I get where he's coming from, though. Bryan's been a failure his whole life. Thank you, Shell. I just looked. She had a 2016 Range Rover. Thank you. So now I guess someone can look up if a 2016 Range Rover has the cameras.
And they need
go hit that like button, guys. Takes 2 seconds. 2 seconds.
They need more parent, you know, interactions and fathers. And I would ask them to go, you know, join sports or find a family, you know, and if a family can be a football team, a baseball team, a basketball team, it could be a church, it could be a lot of other things, but don't think that it's all, you know, girls and all that stuff. As a matter of fact, one of the laws we're working on is once this individual has been charged, you put money on his books and we'll be taking that money. It will be going to pay for his prosecution. And
damn, did you hear this? One of the laws we're working on. Listen to this shit.
As a matter of fact, one of the laws we're working on is once this individual has been charged, you put money on his books and we'll be taking that money.
I love it. I love it. That is the best.
One of the laws we're working on is once this individual has been charged, you put money on his books and we'll be taking that money. It won't be going. Yeah, it will be going to pay for his prosecution and to help victims and mothers and people with counseling and other things. So go ahead and send money now, but once he's convicted, he'll never see $1 again.
Yeah, I don't. That's the way it should be. You know, he obviously he's not convicted yet, but once he is convicted of this crime, you know, there's a saying, you know, if you can't do the time, don't do the crime, and it's for a reason, and it's more than just sitting behind bars. I mean, it's the punishment that's behind it as well.
Yeah. Another thing about the death row is what people don't, maybe they do know. I never knew. It's 23-1. So you're locked down 23 hours and you get 1 hour out. So you can't go and enroll in colleges. You can't pursue higher education. You can't go and have dreams of.
You don't have all those extras.
You know, motivating other people to do what you did. You know, this individual is sick. You know, he studied crime. He studied the BTK killer. His professor was literally orchestrated a private session with him where she got private interviews so she could make a book, an exclusive book, and then she split the profits with him. So
yeah, that's fucking sick. I can tell he's not a Catherine, whatever her name. What's her name? Kathleen Ramsland. Is it Catherine? That's already a law in Florida for Wade Wilson. Catherine Ramsland. I think she's just as sick. I do. I think she lives vicariously through these killers, and I think she has a really weird mind, and that's my opinion. She gives me the creeps. Range Rover 2016, 360-degree surround camera. This was an optional feature available with the Vision Assist package, providing a full 360 view of the vehicle. So we don't know if she had it. She does. Otto, it is. It's weird. Catherine Ramsland. Yep. She is, in my opinion, an odd duck.
His professor was literally orchestrated a private session with him where she got private interviews so she could make a book, an exclusive book, and then she split the profits with him.
Ew.
So then
she split the profits with BTK. I did not know that. Ew. Ew, ew, ew. I don't like that. Do you guys agree with that? Do you think that these killers should get profits on books? I don't. BTK is a sick motherfucker.
And he could use that money to flex in prison and buy cigarettes and buy power and buy influence in there. And we're not going to let that happen. That ain't going to happen in Idaho, and that's not going to happen to him. But that means we got to work with legislators, and we got to find like-minded people that truly care about their community and put out the message that, this person picked the wrong state to do this in. And we've done everything to make sure that we don't attract this type of behavior ever again.
No, it doesn't look like her car had an all on camera like a Tesla. What was the other thing I was going to say? Let me see. Oh, she wasn't a pen pal to Ted Bundy. She wrote into a newspaper about the death penalty when Ted Bundy was about his execution. India already blocked Pakistan's entire water supply. Pandy, that's awful. Stay safe.
Yes, sir. Well, if you need any help from me putting out any word or petitions or any of those type of things, you got it.
I like your shirt. Your shirt's right on the same page,
Yeah.
Firing Squad. You see that Firing Squad? We'll probably have a shirt for that, on these press days that we're in court when we get out of the courtroom. But yeah, that chair they put you in, shit gets real when you get in that chair, I'm sure. When they strap you into that bad boy.
Oh yeah.
100%. And I think I don't think it's going to be that long of a trial. I know that they're anticipating, I think they said 3 months, but at the end of it, I know there's a lot of evidence. I don't think the defense is going to have much to fight back, to be honest with you. I mean, at this point, their biggest argument is a partial alibi over an hour before the murders happened. And in an area where it's not exculpatory for him to continue to just turn down that road that heads to Sunshine, and it gets him right there in front of Floyd's cannabis shop before 302 again. That's what they're working with. And if that's what they have, it shouldn't be very long.
Oh, the statistics of this case are just incredible. So people who say that this is just circumstantial evidence, they're not talking to professionals, because I'm talking to professionals, and they say that there's direct evidence all over this case. This case is, like I said, this individual does nothing but capital cases, and this is the most that he's ever seen. And I live by that. We will show that. So
that's pretty impressive. He's never seen so much evidence.
So DM, that's direct evidence. DM's testimony. And people think, oh, well, whoopie-doo-dah. They're bushy eyebrows, and it's a white guy who's skinny. Well, do you realize, people, that they've run the stats on this? A guy at that age, the category, I think they went to like 30 to, I think like 19 or 18, and said, what percentage is male? And so you remove, and in college town, there's more girls going to college than there is males. So then that dropped it in, like, let's say 46. And then they said, okay, white. And then that dropped it lower. And then they said lean. That was the one that got my attention. 70% of people in that age category are overweight. Mm-hmm. So now you've got an individual who, as eyewitnesses there, that literally like 2 out of 10 meet that qualification, a white guy that's lean.
Yeah.
And he has a white car, and he's out there, and for some reason he doesn't have an alibi. That's the part that gets me, is these Kohbergers that are just brain dead. Like, he doesn't have an alibi. You know how many times, Ann?
These Kohbergers are brain dead. Preach. He's talking to y'all. Richard.
These Kohbergers that are just brain dead. Like, he doesn't have an alibi. You know how many times Ann has begged him to give her an alibi? he won't give it because he doesn't have one, and he's never going to have one. The dude did it. It's that simple. And thank God we have a law that basically makes somebody come out and say, hey, if you plan on saying you were somewhere else, then you need to like give the defense a chance to verify that. Because what if you say you were XYZ person? Well, they need to go interview that person and verify it.
Yeah.
You know, Thompson spotted up multiple times. You can't hide your evidence and then drop it the very last minute and then say, haha, you didn't get to go find out that this isn't true. This person.
Hold on. MR, what woman's channel? What the hell are you talking about? We're not watching a woman's channel. We're watching the Drunk Turkey show. Who? What woman? What are you talking about? Another creator? Who cares? Let them think what they want to think. There's going to be people that they just do it for the shock and awe. I got confused by your comment. Sorry.
Person doesn't live in the state anymore. They're over in another country. You can't just drop this. So, he doesn't have an alibi, people. I mean, what? Come on. Who's out at 2:50ish, turns their phone off, looking around on stars when it was foggy and it was icy and it starts to snow. Yeah. I mean, come on. I mean, and yeah, they know exactly all about that park. We've talked to the person that worked at that park. Yeah, there's cameras at that park. We'll see. And like I said, you ain't got no freaking star apps that like you can point your camera up there and record them and it'll tell you exactly, identify those stars. This guy's done, man. He's done. He's completely done in so many ways. That's just frustrating that there's even channels that can play these people. Because, and I noticed they're getting less and less. Hitler has cleared things up, and that's just by exposing the truth.
Weird.
But there's more, and it's going to get. But
it came up as Hitler in the in the captions.
I thought when these Kohberger delusional self-identifying. That's what really gets down to me is I think some people identify as a Kohberger. They identify as somebody who does a little blow and hangs out and is a little misfit and nobody likes them. And there's all these really popular people out there and they have it coming to them, man, because they never really understood how special they were. And I think it's more of a reflection of them than it is the case, because the case is so strong that I thought when that Amazon order went to his door and he's deleting his history and his own family is like, what the heck is going on with our brother? Our brother's like losing his mind. That they would jump ship and some did, but there's still people who just can overlook, no alibi, the murder weapons in his house, in his possession. He doesn't have it anymore. He doesn't have any of the items associated. Yeah. And is this Dickie's outfit? People, they've gone to the actual stores and looked up the inventory, exactly what is in those things. And there's only a certain amount. For those who don't know, Pullman and Moscow are very, very small towns. So your Dickie's selection is.
This is what I was telling you about. There's only so many Dickies supplied in that area, right? So they can narrow down the article of clothing.
And Moscow are very, very small towns. So your Dickies selection is like this big. You know, it's that big. Maybe a little bit bigger than that, but not much. It's not like a Dickies that you see in the city where there's all these things. There's Dickie boots and all. There's very slim things that this individual could have bought. And it's like a monkey suit, you know, like a suit you put on where you're changing oil and the oil could literally pour off of you.
Right.
So, yeah. That's why they're not fighting the fingernails and all that stuff. And it was one of the reasons why we were a little frustrated early on, like where we were like, why don't we say, you know, if you see somebody with a scratch on their face and, you know, you see something, like say something. You know, we got all this media. We could do it. And, you know, those are the type. That's probably part of the reason why they, you know, share certain things with us is they're like, this guy, we don't want him to go on there and say something like that because it's not relevant. Because this person literally had a Dickies outfit on, was covered head to toe, had a mask with his eyes. You couldn't even scratch the guy. You couldn't even scratch. It's like a paper he wrote. It's like the guy wrote about his own crime. I mean, these people.
He is on a roll. Okay, so with what he had on, head to toe, you couldn't scratch this guy.
You couldn't even scratch it. It's like a paper he wrote. It's like the guy wrote about his own crime. I mean, these people, it just blows my mind. I mean, he writes about his own crime. He interviews individuals and investigates them to figure out how he can incorporate that into his crime. Mm-hmm. We had people write us letters that were like, I was one of the people that was interviewed, and he was obsessed with how I was picking my victims. He was picking victims. This guy said, I told him I picked my victims after they called 911 or their neighbors called 911 on them for a noise complaint, and the husband or the boyfriend was hauled off to jail. Then he would go and he goes, there's certain neighborhoods where they had money. Then I would go in there because I knew the mail wasn't there. And he said, and Bryan called him back repeatedly. And he said, I got a sense that he was really enjoying my stories and how I was telling passed out women, butt naked. And he went into those and was just like, he really liked my story. He liked that. And then I started wondering, well, who was calling 911 on these kids, especially in the daytime, in the middle of the day? They're next to a stadium, a football stadium. How do you get a noise complaint in a college town in the daytime? So, maybe you're trying to figure out how long it takes them to show up. I don't know.
Or what kind of response happens afterwards? Like if who leaves, who stays? Do they come back? If you were to call 911 while there's a party, does everybody not come back? Is that what you need to do?
And if you get a warning that if we come back here, we're going to find you. Somebody's going to jail.
Yeah.
Might be a time where you want to sneak in or do a little surveillance around that house, because that might be the time where you want to go in there, because the last thing they want to do is pick up and call 911.
It was awfully quiet that night. And I think that a lot of that had to do with, one, there was other parties in other places in town.
I think so too. I've said that, Mike, for a while. Like, I think that he called in the noise complaints and got them gun shy, especially the younger roommates that were underage. I feel like that would have made them gun shy to call the police. And I do think that he watched as these calls were made. I do. I think he watched.
And but two, there was also I guess, minors in possession of alcohol and deterrent going on. There was the stop there by the van field by undercover officers in the area trying to stop underage drinking and loud noises. I often wondered if Kohberger was aware of that going on that night, and if maybe that's why that led to one of the reasons why, because he knew that there would be some sort of enforcement out that night that would prevent loud parties or a party in that neighborhood.
Yeah, we have somebody who was working in a department that was.
I think that he went in too,
in charge of all those programs.
Interesting.
So yeah, I think where your mind's going is a logical conclusion of what the behavior football that this person's done. And
wow, so he's saying what Daniel just said, that he had been there before, like maybe even went inside.
Believe me, they've analyzed this footprint. I mean, somebody who goes through the exercise of doing a survey in Reddit, and if you go look.
And did you hear what he said about the survey? The survey was done when he was already out of school. So that survey was not done for research purposes. The answer is, did he meet anybody on that survey? Yeah, he was up to the house 23 times. And remember, Steve had alluded about they took Kaylee's Bluetooth speaker. Yeah, outside looking, inside looking. Inside and outside looking on Reddit.
Look at the times. The guy had already graduated.
Yeah.
And it wasn't used in his graduation, his whatever, his final.
Thesis.
Yeah, his thesis, his final. So, I'd be shocked if this individual didn't know a lot of what was going on from the police standpoint on both sides of that state, Washington and Idaho. And I think that scared some of the local
no,
police
that's what he,
departments,
that's what he said.
And I mean, you read one of them and where they're like, thank God, we didn't hire this guy. It would have been.
Yeah, he was like applying for jobs. Can you imagine if they hired him at the Pullman Police? No, he said it was for a research project, but the timeline says he was already done with school. I think he had cameras in that house. That's what I think. I do. I've always thought he was watching them. I feel like he was watching them, even when he was at home. Because remember what he did with that girl? Remember? She said, oh, someone broke in my apartment, and he offered to put cameras in. He put remember?
that much uglier if that email that came out saying that he tried to apply for that job when he first came up, but he eventually would have got part of that program. I've been told that program is a requirement for graduation for the PhD. So, he was in tune with what those guys were doing.
Yes, but I mean, it sounded like he applied in the spring because of that email that came out. Maybe it was just a reference to what was coming.
Okay, hold on. Lisa, she didn't see her friend bleeding. She thought her friend was passed out. If you must know, Steve Goncalves is going to tell us in just a few minutes that they choked on their own blood. They had internal injuries and they choked on their own blood. They weren't necessarily bleeding out, but bleeding in. Well, you can say bull all you want. You can buy the tiniest of cameras. I mean, I'm not arguing with you on bull. I'm not.
Coming out, but the document, the PCA references a essay that he wrote in the fall when he applied. And so I thought that if he was applying again in the fall, that meant that he didn't get the job in the spring, given his background being a former person who was addicted to heroin and perhaps some of the things that may have happened to him at other schools, or even his job as a security officer may have prevented him from passing the background check. I was concerned that he may never became not concerned. I was glad that he probably wasn't ever going to be a police officer, but that's interesting.
I think he had visions of himself being that. Whether they would have, maybe he doesn't slip through the cracks.
Well,
I
I'm going to prove it
that he slipped through some cracks already because of COVID.
Yeah.
Some of the background checks were not done because of the COVID stuff going on. I have no proof that that's true or not. It's just insiders that told me what was going on during that time. Certain labs were closed because of COVID. Campuses were not all open.
All right, hold
I know
on.
that
We're going to take a little break, and I'm going to prove that DM did not see any fucking blood. Sorry for my language, but I'm tired of these girls being attacked and people saying that they saw things they didn't see. This is directly from a court document. During the foregoing exchange, DM also attempted contacting Ethan Chapin through Snapchat. She again tried calling Kaylee and Xana, but neither responded. DM then exited her room and began running towards BF's bedroom. On her way, she noticed Xana laying on the floor of her bedroom with her head towards the wall and her feet towards the door. DM thought Xana was drunk. She looked over, saw her on the floor, and ran down to Bethany's room. I don't know why that's so hard to understand. The last thing that you would think is that your roommate is stabbed to death in a quadruple murder. She's 19. She was 19 years old. Why would that ever cross her mind in Moscow, Idaho? Hey, crimes. Better late than never.
for a fact. So, I would like to think that they would have caught him.
Yeah, I think the professor that recommended him to the PhD program said that he had actually never met, or she never met Bryan Kohberger in person. Everything was online.
Wow.
Yeah, that was the person that actually recommended him.
Is that Ramsey?
No, it was a different Bolger. I think it was her last name.
I don't know anything about that individual. That's interesting.
Yeah.
So Daniel's talking about the professor that came out and said Bryan was so great. Remember?
Yeah, she's the one who recommended him to the PhD program. She said that he was one of two. He was one of two students to recommend that she's ever recommended, and that he was very bright and brilliant, etc. But that she never met him in person. That it was during online courses due to COVID and everything else that was going on during that time.
Well, that makes a lot more sense because he creeped out every girl that actually got around him. I just got a call yesterday from a girl that I was asking permission to use her name.
Ooh, did you hear this? Okay, so remember in the last hearing, Ann Kohberger was like, Your Honor, there are over 100 video hours of interviews of people who came into contact with Bryan Kohberger and said nothing but mean things about him. Remember that? Mean things to Bryan Kohberger equals they were creeped out. they were creeped out. Over 100 hours of interviews of people like students, people he knew, and none of them had anything good to say. And Kohberger, that's what I call her.
Name to investigate one of the reports that she put in after this all went down. She says she hadn't heard much afterwards. So yeah, there's a lot of women that's why they're like trying to make this whole ASD. I heard that came from his mama, who went and dug through his old records because these medical records are.
Oh, his mama dug through his medical records to give them a diagnosis. Right. They act like the survivors aren't. Right. It's ridiculous. I won't entertain it. It's dumb. It's dumb, dumb, dumb. No one's going to cover up. These cops are not going to cover up. These 19-year-old girls didn't kill anybody. They didn't do anything wrong. It's just absolutely ridiculous. Yeah, he creeped out everybody.
Back in the 90s and the early 2000s, they weren't. There was no EMS, electronic medical record system back then that is still actively. Now you got cancer or something like that. Your records are probably going to still be out there. But if you got a broken finger or something in 2001, don't be surprised if you go to a doctor visit and they can't pull that record up. But I understand.
Okay. So that's exactly what happened with Stephen Stearns. Stephen Stearns tried to bring in a head injury. But guess what? Those records don't exist anymore. So sad. Too bad.
That somebody went and found some of his old records and tried to convince the defense that they could use those to make an excuse for his odd behavior. Because there's going to be student after student after student that are going to just talk about how they had a running tally on this guy. Of all the weirdness that he was doing and the inappropriate behavior that this guy had. I mean, he'd barely been there and he was getting kicked out in a university where that is super rare, guys. You don't just go into universities and see people getting fired. It's almost unheard of. So, yeah, this guy was setting off, alarms all over the place. And yeah, this individual said that she made a police report and she wanted me to find out if they had found anything out on it.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if there's.
Wow. So this girl that Steve talked to said that she filed a police report. Huh.
She wanted me to find out if they had found anything out on it.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if there's more police reports and more reports, as you mentioned, against him and about his behavior. I did hear about the Bryan tally and his behaviors, and I know that there was.
I've never heard of the Bryan tally. I don't even know what that is. What's the Bryan tally?
I think a document recently on the defensive side that stated that he was cleared. And one of the things that I walked it through with my audience is saying that, well, if he was cleared, that means there's an investigation. And if there's an investigation, that means there's an accusation. Now, what we do know is that these young ladies started to document things. So what probably happened was they reported some of this behavior and it was investigated and it was he said, she said type of stuff. And they were probably told to start to document things, which is why they had this tally going on in efforts because of how disturbing these behaviors were, so that they could have some sort of proof. Because if it's not in writing, it doesn't exist. And I think that's a pretty clear path that we're seeing of escalation as well, and as far as what's leading up to eventually would be that would happen on November 13th. Going back to Bryan Kohberger's 2020 writings that we spoke about just a few minutes ago, one of the things that really stood out to me was when he was referencing, well, there's two things. He was referencing that there might be something that could throw off investigators that was left by the killer. And another thing is to check the doors for DNA as the person was leaving. Maybe perhaps they may have left DNA behind on the door. And we find out that the backsliding glass door was left open the entire time. Now, I strongly suspect that being the case because, well, if he's opening the door, he's touching it once, he's closing it again, then he's touching it twice, and then opening it to get out. There's at least 3 different times that he's touching it. One time after he's already exerted himself, which would probably mean that he's sweating and things of that nature. That would be a high possibility for him to leave DNA behind. But he points that out in his 2020 writing. Sliding glass door is open. I see a huge connection there. Are you connecting the same dots as I am?
Okay, before Steve starts, take a look at this. Thank you, Kels. This is 1122 King Road, and this circle is the diameter of 100 meters, which is 328 feet radius around their home. That's how close Bryan Kohberger got to the King Road house. Thank you, Northern Beans, for 5 cooterships. I appreciate you. Or 5 clickerships, sorry. That's pretty mind-blowing right there. That's pretty mind-blowing. What reason could you have? Huh? Tell me, Kohbergers. So you have a friend near there 23 times. Between July 9th, 2022 and November 7th, 2022, between the hours of 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. There's no stores. What's his reason? 23 is a ton. Especially if you don't know anybody around there. All right, let's keep going. We're almost done. We're getting towards the end. He drops some more bombs at the end.
Yeah, very much so. And I know that there's some people looking at this exactly.
Hey, Callie.
So
Hey,
much so,
STL.
like, I've heard a scenario where Xana goes in. Let's say she goes in, she gets her meal prepared.
Okay, now listen. This is a theory of his. Now listen.
Xana goes in. Let's say she goes in, she gets her meal prepared. She the DoorDash meal, goes to the bathroom, goes to her room, something, goes back into the kitchen and says, "Oh, there's somebody here." How does she know that? Because that slider's been left wide open.
Okay. So they're saying the DoorDash, she was getting the DoorDash ready in the kitchen, left the room for a minute. He comes in. She goes back in the kitchen, sees the doors wide open, and says, "Somebody's here."
And there's a kill kit, something there, some kind of package, some kind of.
He has talked about a kill kit more than once.
Thing that raises a flag that somebody just came into my house. And maybe you're hearing noises upstairs. And yeah, so I've seen a couple different scenarios that have been discussed. I don't have anything concrete. I can't go there, but
he doesn't have anything concrete, so he can't go there.
I think that
well, the dog barking at the exact same time that you can.
And you got to remember too, he could have been on foot walking around there too.
Your whimpering and a thud says that the glass door had to have been open. It sounds like when Dylan woke up and she heard who she thought was Kaylee, probably because
the slider is in the kitchen.
The dog going up at the same time. Is actually Xana coming downstairs. Well, Murphy would have been running with her, and it sounds like she went to Ethan and Murphy went outside. And I think when she hears somebody say, "It's okay, I'm here to help you," is that confrontation in the hallway between maybe Xana turns around to see what's going on, and there he is. And, he says that in order to surprise her, I guess.
Yeah, one of the death penalty qualifiers is that actually I'm here to help you when that individual could have just left. They didn't have to kill him. So, so people who
I think so too, Callie. I do too.
Talk all this madness about DM. She's been huge to the case, actually massive to the case, and you're going to find out that the late 911 call is actually going to be probably the final call, the final nail in his coffin. So, there's even benefits to even the most tragic. You're going to find out that the late 911 call is actually going to be probably the final call, the final nail in his coffin. So, there's even.
Why would that be the final nail in his coffin?
Benefits to even the most tragic parts. I mean, the late call, if it leads to different evidence, then it's a good thing. And I say that knowing that my daughter wasn't going to survive what she was stabbed so many different times. So,
oh my God. That's pretty bad.
And I can clarify a little bit of that too.
Are you referring to him going back out there? Like, had she called 911?
He said, are you referring to him going back out there?
Early, then he wouldn't have gone back at 9 o'clock, right?
I'm referring to a couple different things, but the coroner made it clear that at least 2 of the victims, it's hard for me to talk about, but they basically drowned it on their stab wounds.
2 of the victims basically drowned on their blood.
So the blood wasn't like...
He Googled the murder before 911 was called. Whoa. Wow. Oh, wow. But did he Google it before he drove back by? Or did he Google it before? Or after he drove by in the morning? Do you guys think that he actually filmed the murders? That's the nail in his coffin. That's the smoking gun. That is the smoking gun. I bet he was perplexed when he drove by and there was no action. I wonder if he came back after there was some action. You know what I mean?
Bing bang.
Did he come back that afternoon as well? Yeah, how could he Google it if it hadn't even been reported? Wouldn't be logistically difficult with a GoPro. I mean, people strap GoPros on all the time. He is so done. He's so done. He Googled the murders after they happened, but before the 911. So the girl's not calling right away is actually going to help. Yep. Huh.
Victims, it's hard for me to talk about, but they basically drowned it on their stab wounds.
It disconnected? I think we're back. I think we're back. I don't know why it keeps doing that, but we're back.
Do you think that we're going to find out in this trial what the prosecution believes he did with that knife?
I know some of the background of where they looked and what they were trying to find. And
so he's talking about the knife. Do you think that we're going to find out anything about the knife?
Honestly, I think I just go to the simplest. Why has he got a shovel in the back of his car?
Sure.
And it's not these idiots, because there's a Kohberger out there right now thinking to themselves that they're smart. No, you're stupid. You're an idiot. It was a mini one. It wasn't very big. You don't use it for snow.
He had a mini shovel. Hey, S. He had a mini shovel, not a big snow shovel.
So anybody who thinks he was using that for snow, you're just a moron. You don't live out here. Nobody uses a shovel like that. You shovel like that for dirt, and it has a super tip. So yeah, driving around with a shovel tells me that he probably had something to do with that, because then that gives him the ability to go back and get it. Mm-hmm. You know, and he showed all these.
I think Kaylee Dime was right. I think he went out to that place where he pinged, and I think they looked for the stuff out there, but maybe couldn't find it. Maybe they did find it. We don't know. We don't know what we don't know, right? He buried the jumpsuit. I think he was very careful. It makes me wonder if there's been any prior history of him going up in the mountains where his phone stopped pinging for the 13 minutes. I've thought about that too, Callie. Yeah, it was Johnson. And you know what else was weird about Johnson? Is that Kopaka's family had a farm right there where he pinged. Oh my gosh, Robat, are you serious? That is so weird. Serial killer Todd Lowe Help bought a shovel like that and left an Amazon review about the shovel helping him bury things. That's kind of like Rex Heuermann saying what his tool of choice was carpenter's hammer. Coal help, whatever his name is.
This was a fantasy for him. You
Yeah.
know, he had planned it for a long time. And so that was going to be, you know, the FBI were the ones that told they would be surprised about the kill kit. So it wasn't like I came up with that and I had some insight about this true crime stuff. I didn't know. They told me they wouldn't be surprised if he surveilled the house multiple times. They wouldn't be surprised if he snuck into the house.
See?
You know, whether
They wouldn't be surprised if he surveilled the house multiple times. They wouldn't be surprised if he snuck into the house.
he did or not, I'm not saying he did. I'm not saying he did or he didn't. I don't know that. But I don't know that the profile that they built of this individual said that this person was going to surveil the house and be comfortable with it. Because, I mean, it's a knife. I mean, when you use a knife, it shows a certain level of planning and a comfort level that you're going to go in there. You know, and these houses, people might not know this either, that these floor plans after COVID, they all went online. They put floor plans so you didn't have to ask to go see these houses. You could go online, most of these rental places, and see the whole floor plan, including this one, because this is called the Queens on the Kings Road. This is where the Queens were, because it was on Kings Road, and it was the house that for multiple generations where every kid wanted to be because of the location. Put you, as soon as you got off the campus from the football game, you were right there, so you could go drink and not be harassed. You know. And if you wonder why 911 wasn't called, you know, use your brain, guys. I mean, maybe you didn't go to college. You don't need to go to college to understand that. You want to get off campus and you want to have a beer with your friends. And if you got somebody who's 21 and somebody who's not 21, you better talk to the person who's 21 before you call 911.
Yeah.
Or that's standard protocol, right? That's standard protocol. Because if that six pack in the fridge has got 2 beers and those 2 beers are in somebody's room that they should be in,
Hey,
you know,
Katie.
now graduation, your finals are over. You know, you're sitting in you're getting a citation or who knows what goes with that, you know. So people can read between the lines and understand what was probably going on.
Yeah, no, for sure. You know, the back door, and you mentioned that maybe he'd been there before. You know, I think everybody's seen this image where they use these stools to secure the back sliding glass door after the fact. Was it broken? Was there something wrong with it?
I've been told that all those doors do not work correctly. That when I say all, that there's a lot of construction that was done around the exact same time. So maybe that was just a certain area that hadn't been developed and then it got developed. So then those sliders.
It hasn't ended on my end. I think we'll bounce back in. I don't know what is going on with YouTube. Did it like completely end? I'm live. Hello, hello. I think I'm back. This is extremely weird that this keeps happening. It ended earlier and then came back on. It's so weird. Can you guys hear me now? Put a 1 in chat if you can hear me. Never went out for some of you. Isn't that weird? On my end, it looks completely fine. I wonder if scent dogs or cadaver dogs would be able to smell the scent of decomp or even Bryan's scent if the items were buried. I wonder that too. You guys can hear me. Okay, good. Okay, let's finish this up. We've only got a little bit more to go.
Are very common. So you can push the slider towards the lock and hit it and it will pop it up. So that was well known that the sliders weren't very secure at locking. So I don't have any idea that that's what this person did, but I was told that even if you lock that slider, that would be a place where you would want to, or you're a person who's going to sneak into somebody else's home, a burglar, that would be an ideal door to try to test.
Yeah. You know, there was a time not too long ago where Ann Taylor was talking in one of her hearings.
Hold on. Hey, Truth Nation Uncensored. You think you're going to come in here and laugh at me? How about you go fuck yourself? How about that? Bye, Truth Nation Uncensored. You're uncensored today, baby. Here you go.
C'est la vie, adios, fuck off and die.
And they were mentioning that there wasn't any DNA of the victims inside his vehicle, but they mentioned something about being sprayed all over the place. Now, I don't know if that's something that maybe CSI guys did to try to find something, or is there maybe Are you aware if they found anything in the car that could lead to like maybe?
I'm glad you bring this up because nobody talks about this part. So don't believe me. Go do your own search. Go research. Go to a paid version of AI. There's some AIs that have legal descriptions and libraries. Go look it up. 6 weeks in a car, that DNA is gone. Even if you leave it there, it's going to be contaminated. It's going to degrade. So they were like, don't be surprised if we don't find anything in there because it's sitting in outdoor weather where it's going below freezing to up to 70 degrees. They literally looked at all the temperatures every single day that vehicle was outside. It wasn't garaged. So it's sitting in the baking sun, then going as cold as it possibly did. I think the coldest was something like 20 some degrees. And then the hottest it got was like 60 some degrees. But inside a car, you amplify that right on up. So yeah, this individual clean, they sprayed with something. But even if they left something there, six weeks inside of a car, it wasn't going to come back. It wasn't, at least that's how it was described to me. This stuff's not going to come back, or don't be surprised. They would have been very surprised if they found something that was usable. They're saying, no, it could be under a carpet seal or something to protect it. It would have needed something to protect it because if it was in direct sunlight, like literally in 24 hours, DNA can start becoming corrupt in sunlight, especially sunlight inside of a car. So yeah, this stuff will probably be brought up in the trial, but I never hear anyone ever talk about, hey, this car literally drove from Washington all the way to Pennsylvania. That's a lot of exposure. I wonder if this person just cleaned it up, or if they found something, it just didn't come back as anything that was viable because it was 100% contaminated.
Yeah.
And I think that's what they're hinting at. There was some contamination. I do know that the FBI went through that car piece by piece. And unlike some of these people, I think they do a very good job. And I think they're very skilled at what they do. And if they didn't find anything, then there wasn't much to be found. But again, there's definitely going to be a sense of some corruption. And they did find, like you said, there were some cleaning supplies that I hope that they can actually be traced back to a certain lab. Because not everything is purchasable over the counter. There's certain things that
So some kind of cleaning supply that had to be ordered special from a lab that's not purchasable over the counter. Listen to that again.
Cleaning supplies that I hope that they can actually be traced back to a certain lab. Because not everything is purchasable over the counter. There's certain things that you have to have a license to purchase.
Yeah, exactly.
He said, yeah, exactly. What kind of license? That's what I would have asked. What kind of license would you need to purchase this stuff? Because did Bryan have some sort of license we don't know about? Who bought the cleaning supplies?
There's another case that had occurred. I want to say the last name was Corco or something like that. Corco, a guy out of Rochester, New York, drove 3 hours, and he took the life of his father, and his mom with an axe to the heads of both of them. And he drove 3 hours back, and when they searched his Jeep, no blood. He stood over him when he did it. Now, the reason that they believe that he was able to accomplish this, because there was no cleanup, no sign of a shower or anything like that, was because he was a veterinarian tech, and at his place of business, they had, I guess, materials that would protect veterinarian techs during surgeries, and that's what he had worn, and he was able to drive 3 hours back without getting any DNA. The only DNA, I think the DNA that they actually got him, that ended up convicting him was he went through a toll booth, and he got the DNA off of the sticker, the receipt that he got from there. And
damn, off a receipt from a toll.
So that's what ended up doing him in. But, I think that there's the possibility, especially when you see that 2020 May letter, final that you wrote about how, what to wear so that way you don't contaminate a scene.
Wait a minute. Do you guys remember when we went through the blotter and there was someone who broke into the WSU veterinary clinic? Do you remember that? No. He's saying something you can't buy over the counter. Remember, there was police blotters that we went over, and there was a break-in in the veterinary thing at WSU. I wonder if he stole cleanup supplies from their surgeries. No, they wouldn't have crime scene cleanup supplies at school. I don't think so. I mean, maybe. I don't know, but it was broken into. Someone did break into the veterinary school at WSU. I don't remember the exact date. I can look it up, but
I think we're going to see a bunch of that in his purchases, and I think that's going to be something else that does him in.
Yeah, it's just another record that they were able to pull off where, yeah, I mean, he talks about the right outfit that you would want to commit this crime in, and then they can they have him purchase it. Yeah, maybe it's not exactly the same, but we all know what a Dickies outfit. One of the thing. It's basically what Michael Myers did.
Yeah.
So it's. I guess some people like to be lied to. They like to be manipulated and strung around. It's a bizarre thing for me. As a father, I never want that for my kids. I want my kids to think on their own and not be naive and get led astray. But maybe some people that's just not for them.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, there are some folks, it doesn't matter. I had one guy literally tell me
he didn't work at a meat processing plant. He was supposed to be cleaning fish for customers that were fishing. And I guess he was like really weird with the customers because his old boss was interviewed and he was like, he didn't have him come back because he didn't know how to talk to people.
That because I guess there was a vehicle in Eugene, Oregon. I don't know if you remember that one that was crashed on the side of the road. Mm-hmm. Apparently that belongs to somebody at one point lived in Colorado, and the 1122 residents at one point, one of the investors had a property somewhere else in Colorado. That's too much of a coincidence. That's too much. Don't worry about what BK is doing. That's all coincidence. But that car being from Colorado and somebody being from over there from Colorado, different parts, different people, everything else. It's wild, the conspiracies that they believe in. Well, Steve, I don't want to take too much more of your time. Is there anything else that you want to maybe get out to the world about anything?
I don't know if I've heard anyone repeat the because I want to bring a little bit of clarity, because people don't realize that like the interviews that I do on some of the TV channels, they're pretty much live, and even if they're not live, they're not scripted in any shape or form. So we can't go into details like this. So I want to take advantage of on that Bryan tally. His little thumbs up asshole pic.
The thumbs up selfie. He said the thumbs up asshole pic. Listen to this.
I think I figured it out. I think it's like 14 hours later, he's calling in sick.
He took the selfie and 14 hours later, he called in sick. So he called in sick that Monday after the murders.
For work. And that's the only day he ever called.
Listen again.
His little thumbs up asshole pic. I think I figured it out. I think it's like 14 hours later, he's calling in sick for work. And that's the only day he ever called. Mm-hmm. So he's obsessed.
That's the only day he ever called in was the Monday after the murders.
With the crime that he did and going through the media. This is all going to be part of his search history. You guys are all going to see it. And, there's a thing, there's exclusive knowledge. If you know about a certain part of a crime before it's made general public or maybe before it
right there. He knew about the crime before it was made public.
It happens. It's pretty damning. To me, there's nothing more damage. But I also thought people would change their tune when the Amazon order puts the murder weapon in his house, and his own family's like wondering what the heck's going on. And when I say family, I believe it's just one sister that was really, really helpful. Or the other
his
people.
One sister was very helpful. We were right, guys.
Families like wondering what the heck's going on. And when I say family, I believe it's just one sister that was really, really helpful, or the other people weren't so much helpful.
Well, I mean, they're pretty specific on the March 20th to March 30th time frame for that knife purchase. Yeah, 100%.
Somebody was able to tell them exactly when that happened, even though the history had been deleted. Mm-hmm. Why do you delete this? I mean, why would you delete that? If you're this outdoor hunter, CSI, because I hear all these people, oh, he's a CIS grad. He's going to have all this weird stuff. You're not going to have knowledge of a crime, bro. You're not going to have knowledge of the crime. That is not public knowledge. You're not going to have it. I don't care. And it doesn't explain doing surveys and doing all these weird things and creeping every girl out. And the list of the red flags is what really frustrates me, because this guy had been harassing girls all the way back to high school. We've talked to people all the way to high school. Like the girl that was literally like, he's obsessed with me. And it was like extremely embarrassing. I'd walk into the classroom and everyone was like, is he going to be that awkward weirdo that stares at you all day long? And so this goes all the way back to school, and they've interviewed and talked to all these different people. So it frustrates me
hundreds of
that
hours.
you can harass people at school, and because of the way the system is, you kind of go unnoticed. You kind of are able to pull it off because nobody wants to drag those victims into a court case. Nobody wants to do a police report, say this girl is absolutely petrified of this boy and she's crying at night and all that kind of stuff. No, they basically removed the two
Thanks,
and then pretend
Anna.
like it never happened. And that he had been removed from so many different situations because some girl came forward all the way up to WSU, all the way to WSU. He was still getting away with it, still being able to harass these girls. And, you know, it's a very frustrating thing to see how many failures led to your daughter's death.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
but we're
How
working
many
on
people?
we're working on this to make sure that we can pass some laws.
Okay, so basically he's saying that there were other women, other girls that he was creeping out and they didn't report it. Oh, man.
Different situations because some girl came forward and she's crying at night and all that kind of stuff. No, they basically removed the two and then
Wow.
pretend like it never happened. And that he had been removed from so many different situations.
He had been removed from so many different situations.
Because some girl came forward all the way up to WSU, all the way to WSU. He was still getting away with it, still being able to harass these girls. And,
Remember, we heard about it in high school too.
you know, it's
Hi, Shane. You're watching the Eubanks Ben fight. Okay, dork.
a very frustrating thing to
Good to see you, Shane.
see how many failures led to your daughter's death.
Yeah.
And but we're working on this to make sure that we can pass some laws that try to help another family from having to go through a VK type because unfortunately this is probably going to lead. I mean, that Georgia kid was a fan of his. The Georgia school shooter, I don't know his name. Great.
Yeah, I remember he called himself a Kohberger.
So it's already happening. So when people see why I'm on a camera and why I'm talking about the death penalty and the firing squad, it's not that I'm into this stuff and I ever would have talked about it. It's just I know there's fans and I'm trying to save another family in another school and another place of business from dealing with somebody like this. You know, dreams of grandeur. He literally wrote about how he was just felt like people were sacks of flesh. I mean, everything this guy did, and to think that some people are still following a narrative that he has been all set up. Like, who set you up when they don't even know who you are? And that's another way. You're going to plant somebody's DNA and they're not in CODIS? What are you, stupid? And there's criminals all around your community that you could literally plant that and they'd be arrested and never see a day of light and it'd be over and done with. Nobody would even question it. But you're gonna go after this PhD guy who you're gonna have to do this whole IgG thing to. It's gonna spend weeks working on it. It doesn't even make sense. Who sets up somebody like that? Yeah. So I appreciate you giving an audience and helping set the table straight and help bringing out as much truth as we possibly can. I always say go to Idaho's webpage, go look at the court records, go through it. Don't take my word. Don't take Daniel's word. Go look yourself. Verify everything that you hear, and hopefully this summer we can get this case over with, and you'll see it play out, and it's going to end. I know exactly how it's going to end.
Yeah, no, I have a strong suspicion on how it's going to end as well. You know, knowledge of the crime. I mean, there was a late 911 call. He may have seen somebody. Is it possible that he made a search during the time before the 911 call came out?
He felt very confident to return to that scene at 9:00, right?
Yep.
I wonder why he felt so confident.
It's true. That is true. Those were one of the things that boggled my mind,
Why
for a
did
while
he
now.
feel
It's like he was able to go back. He went back. I mean, the scene could have been discovered at any point. The camera could have been set up, and they could have been documenting cars that were driving by at any point. And he went back. So it's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you again for coming on. Maybe after this is all over, if I can get you back on and we can talk about your experience there, then maybe we can get you on about some other things that don't have to do with true crime. Maybe. I know we've had our conversations with other stuff as well.
I got you, man. Yeah, you would. You're the kind of guy that you're my neighbor. We would have probably shoot the shit and catch up and hang out and have a couple beers or in a barbecue. And those are the type of people that I hang out with and have an association with them. But nothing like BK.
Yeah, no, I hear you, man. I mean, this guy, he's just seeing that picture that he took, that selfie. It makes you mad. I mean, mad is just not even a a strong enough word. Angry. There's a lot of things. Just knowing what he just did, and yeah,
knowing that all those times he got away with it through the school and all that thing, he finally felt like he become the master of his own demons, and it was all in that photo. He really thought he was gonna get away with it. And so much so he went to the crime scene, returned to the crime scene. So I don't want to hear people say
If
that
you were going to kill
he
someone,
wouldn't have
how
made those
would you get
mistakes.
away with it?
He's still compulsive. He's still a freaking
Human.
self-absorbed ass. So he wanted to go see what he did. He wanted to see chaos. He didn't see it, but I wouldn't be surprised that he returned to the crime scene, because he wasn't a robot. He wanted to be a robot. He tries to act like he's one up on with his ASD and all this stuff, but he's very much human, and he made human mistakes, and it's all going to come out. And like I said, I want enough information to come out to where when this conviction's over and done with, these trolls just go and find another case to talk about, and we can go back to normal, and we never have to deal with this stuff anymore. I've already told my family, once we get to the death penalty, we'll step away. We don't need to do any interviews. We don't need to be involved in it anymore. And I don't even want to worry about it at that point. I just know he's locked up with 23 and 1. And that's good enough for me. And if it takes...
Hold on. Hack, sorry, but I can't stand Steve. Let me have an opinion. It's not about letting you have an opinion. It's about having an opinion that doesn't fucking matter. It doesn't matter if you like Kaylee's dad or not. Who gives a fuck? Why do you even have to say, sorry, but I can't stand Steve? Mods, please delete that stuff. It's so disrespectful, because he's not here to make friends with you. He's not here to be your fucking friend. He's not here to be likable. He's here because he's a victim. His daughter was brutally murdered, if you haven't heard. He's not here to fucking prove to you anything. He's got a wife. He don't want you. So sick of these comments. It's so disrespectful. Stupid, man.
20 years, 30 years, that's not my problem. I've done as much as I possibly can as a father, and but I don't want it to just become my identity. We have to go fishing, and we got to go hang out with our kids and our grandkids and put this behind us.
Amen, brother. Well, you have yourself a safe week.
I would too. Reasonable doubt. It's good to see you. Right. He's a freaking victim, man. Oh, sorry, but I can't stand Steve. What the fuck? Who even says that? Have you ever heard that it's better to just not say something? If you don't have, has your mama ever taught you, if you don't have something nice to say, don't fucking say anything at all? This is a situation where that applies. Okay? This guy didn't choose to be in the seat he's in. So that is where, when your mama says, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all, this would be the time. This would be the exact time. On that note, though, I'm curious because South Carolina just put someone to death with this firing squad. Do you guys want to see?
South Carolina.
Let's watch this quick clip and see how this ish works.
Carolina Supreme Court has cleared the way for the first execution by firing squad in the U.S. in nearly 15 years.
So this is a huge development in the world of execution methods.
Brad Sigmund was sentenced to death for killing his ex-girlfriend's parents. His latest appeal denied, setting the stage for tomorrow's execution. And he's chosen to die by firing squad instead of the electric chair or the more common practice, lethal injection.
In recent years, there's been a reevaluation of the firing squad as a possible method of execution, primarily because lethal injection has only gotten worse over the decades.
Some states began allowing firing squads as an option because of a shortage of lethal injection drugs. But another major concern has been the dozens of lethal injections that have been botched, some blamed on execution teams lacking the medical expertise to administer them.
I think firing squad is the least inhumane method. So I can understand an inmate selecting it. That makes sense to me.
Since 1977, only 3 executions by firing squad have been carried out in the U.S. A hood is placed over the prisoner's head, and multiple corrections officers fire rifles from 15 feet away. Only these 5 states currently allow the procedure, with Idaho just yesterday moving one step closer to making it the primary execution method. Andrew Dimber.
Did you hear that? Idaho's making it their primary.
The house address. You're being able to hide your house address and look like...
Hold on. Hold on. Let me find it. So the prisoner is strapped to a metal chair that sits on top of a catch basin. The shooters are 15 feet away, and they literally have a target on their heart. Did you guys know that? They put a target right on their heart. And there's bullets only in one of those three people's guns that are standing there shooting. Can you guys see that thumbnail? Here. It's nuts. It's absolutely nuts. So look. The round is designed to break apart on impact. It's a 308 caliber Winchester. Isn't that wild? But they hit you in the heart and you're done. Done. And you have a thing over your head so you don't even know it's coming. That's so freaky to me. That's so freaky. And they're in Idaho's making this their primary method. That's wild. I mean, it really is kind of the most humane way because these botched executions with the lethal injection are freaking scary. And then the electric chair is freaking brutal. I mean, it literally fries your brain. This guy chose it. Let's watch this.
South Carolina carried out the first firing squad execution in the U.S. in 15 years. In 2001,
this
Brad
was a month ago.
Repeatedly beat his ex-girlfriend's parents with a baseball bat until they died. A doctor pronounced Sigmund dead at 6:08 last night, 3 minutes after sharpshooters fired their rifles at the prisoner, who had a target over his heart and a hood over his head. Meg Oliver was at the prison in Columbia.
In this room, behind a century-old electric chair, 67-year-old Brad Sigmund was strapped.
Hold on, let me fix this screen. This is wild. He killed his girlfriend's parents because she wouldn't get back with him.
Down here, hidden behind a wall 15 feet away, 3 corrections employees fired live rounds at him through a small rectangular hole, a method he chose instead of lethal injection or the electric chair. New bulletproof glass was installed to shield witnesses.
Do you expect more states will follow suit?
No.
Why not?
This was a political game that the Republicans in our legislature fell for when they voted for that. Nobody really wanted this.
Why not?
It wasn't necessary because we had 2 methods of execution. We had the electric chair and lethal injection.
John Osmond is the former director of the South Carolina Department of Corrections, where he oversaw 14 executions. While lethal injection remains the primary method in most states, drug shortages and botched executions have led to a revival of older methods. Sigmund's attorney, Bo King.
Why would your client choose to die this way?
Brad had repeatedly asked for the most basic facts about South Carolina's lethal injection drugs. She's like, is it expired? Have the drugs been diluted? Have the drugs spoiled? And he was repeatedly refused that information.
So he chose a firing squad?
He chose the firing squad.
Sigmund was sentenced to death for killing his ex-girlfriend's parents, David and Gladys Lark, in 2001, beating them with a baseball bat, a crime he admitted to.
How would you describe this form of execution?
Death may be difficult for anybody, but as far as ending a human life quickly, I think this is probably about as good as you can get.
23 states currently have the death penalty. 5 allow the use of a firing squad.
This was an impossible choice, but between the prospect of dying strapped to a gurney over 20 minutes, drowning in the blood and fluid in your own lungs, as opposed to the firing squad, he made the only choice that he could.
The state of South Carolina maintains this is not cruel and unusual punishment because...
Wow, that's wild, isn't it? Very wild stuff. And I can't believe that they filmed them on TV. What? Hold on. They showed executions on TV? Oh, man, I don't remember that. That's wild. That's scary. 2 weeks ago, South Carolina, here's another one. South Carolina ain't playing.
In less than 24 hours, convicted killer Michael Motti is going to be put to death by the state of South Carolina. And Calhoun County Sheriff Thomas Summers, who investigated the case, says it was one of the most evil crimes he's ever seen. The case dates back more than 20 years, but tonight, one family friend telling me Friday's execution on tomorrow means the end of a cold-blooded murder.
An Orangeburg public safety officer was found dead yesterday.
Anyways, he got the firing, so they're using it a lot, it sounds like.
The 2004 killing of Captain James Myers still chilling for Calhoun County Sheriff Thomas Summers.
Crazy. I don't remember that either. I don't want to remember it. But yeah, Idaho's going to make it their main. Wow. All right, guys. I'm going to close this one out. Thank you so much. And thank you, Drunk Turkey Show, for, oh, wait. Hold on. Guilty of armed robbery. Hold on. It's not playing. That's weird. Anyways. I don't know why that's not working, but this is from the 70s. Yeah. Anyways, thank you to Drunk Turkey for such a great interview with Steve, and thoughts and prayers to all of the victims' families of this horrific crime. But I appreciate Steve, coming out and giving us some more details and trying to, keep the misinformation down. But let's see. Do you think Bryan Kohberger killed before? 38% say yes. Not sure. 35%. So you guys are torn. And 25% say no. Wow. Thank you, moderators, for being here and holding down the fort. I appreciate you guys. You guys have a good night. Be looking for me on the other channel. I might be live later tonight over there. Until the next one, guys, you guys stay safe. Let's run our credits and get the heck out of here. Thank you, guys. If you're replaying, leave your comments down below. Thanks. I'll see you in the next one, guys. Bye. So much for watching. If you enjoyed this live stream or video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on my latest content. Want to take it a step further? Bring it all in. And join our community clickers by becoming a Patreon or a YouTube member. You'll get exclusive access to our Discord server, special channel perks, and much more. Until then, I'll see you in the next one.
Click. It's real easy, man.